Welcome to the Versions of Healing, the interview segment of the Healing Version podcast, a space created to uplift real stories from real people on their unique paths to healing. In each episode, we sit down with individuals from all walks of life, from survivors, overcomers, healers, and seekers, to talk about the experiences that shaped them and the steps they've taken towards wholeness. There's no single way to heal, and no story is too small. Whether the wounds come from trauma, grief, addiction, broken relationships, or self-doubt, this segment is here to hold space for every voice and every version of healing. These conversations are raw, powerful, and rooted in truth, because healing doesn't just happen in silence. It happens when we share, listen, and grow together. So come as you are, and let's explore the many versions of healing. Hey y'all, what's up? And welcome back to another episode of Versions of Healing, the interview segment of the Healing Version podcast. Today I am joined by Julian, a therapist, guide, and companion on the journey back to wholeness. Julian goes far beyond traditional therapy. He helps people navigate trauma, explore identity, and integrate the often misunderstood world of psychedelic experiences. His approach isn't clinical, it's human, grounded in presence, deep listening, somatic work, and honest self-inquiry. Julian creates sacred spaces for transformation. Clients describe their time with him as some of the most powerful, life-shifting experiences they've ever had. In this conversation, we will explore what it truly means to heal, how to soften survival patterns that often served us, and how to return to the deepest truth of who we are. Hi, Julian. Welcome to the Healing Version podcast. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me here today.
Oh, you are truly welcome. I am happy to have you. So I'm just going to dive right into it. So as far as your work and your calling, you describe yourself not just as a therapist, but as a companion on a healing path. What does that word healing mean to you?
Yeah, healing is something that we can observe all throughout this world. We can see it in almost every living being, whether it's an animal or a plant or a system or structure. It has the ability to heal and regenerate. When a plant or a tree loses a limb, it'll scar over and it'll learn how to adapt to that new environment. That same wisdom's inside of each and every one of us. Our bodies know how to heal. Our emotional patterns know how to heal. But what ends up happening is we get stuck in various adaptations that we usually learn very early in life. And these adaptations, they help us in the short term, but they harm us in the long term. So healing is really a trip back into ourselves to tap into that wisdom that's inside of each and every one of us. And to do that, what we need to do is learn how to recognize and identify all of these patterns that we learn to adapt from pain and how they constrict us and how that pain keeps showing up here in the present. So that way we can cultivate things like agency, choice, and responsibility for ourselves to ultimately liberate ourselves from those old patterns.
Thank you for that. So was there a time in your life or like a moment or experience that drew you to that kind of healing work?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The first maybe 30 years of my life were just pure survival. From my early childhood, I was on my own very early. And when I was in my early 20s, there were so many things that were happening that made me want to change the way that I was relating to myself and interacting with life. And that was the pivotal moment. And then ever since then, it was just making choices every single day to consistently try to figure out how can I soothe this pain? How can I comfort this pain? And ideally, how can I enjoy and thrive in living my own life? So lots of moments, and it's been a continuous practice to try to get there.
Thank you for sharing that. So you often help people soften their survival patterns. For those listening who may not be familiar with that, what are survival patterns and how do they show up in our adult life?
So when we go through pain and we don't have the resources to navigate it, we adapt to it in whatever means are available to us. So if we're going through something that is very painful, very threatening to who we are, to our existence, We have these defense mechanisms, as we might call them, adaptations or survival mechanisms that kick in, that help us go through that short-term period of that pain. But this pattern often gets entrenched in who we are. And so that pattern becomes the source of great pain later in life. I give you some examples of that if you'd like, which would be when we're children and we're going through painful things like we're not getting our needs met, or we might have abusive parents or negligent parents, or we might have very loving, caring parents who are listening to modern medical advice that say don't hold your children when they cry out, or they might follow common culture and exile or punish children for having emotions. The way that we adapt to those painful environments is we learn to disconnect from ourselves. That's the adaptation, that's the survival mechanism. It's a wonderful mechanism because when we're going through something that's too painful, we don't have the resources to deal with it. We only have a few options of what we can do. We can set boundaries with it. We can tell the people who are hurting us to stop. We can exert our emotions or express our emotions and ideally try to get the situation to change. But as children, we don't have that opportunity. We can go away physically, but we're dependent on the relationship with the parents, and it's not like a 10-year-old can just go set up shop in another part of the country or another state and survive economically, and they can't survive without the attachment of learning how to develop your body and regulate your emotions. So going away physically is out of the question as well. And that's where the third option, the survival mechanism of going away mentally, disconnecting from the pain, kicks in. And the way we do that is we suppress our emotions. We disconnect from the feelings. We suppress our boundaries. We stifle our expression. We put other people's needs before our own. We become people pleasers. We make ourselves small and agreeable. Each one of these is a survival mechanism. It provides a short-term relief to help us go through that pain, but it harms us over the long run. And so when I'm talking about things like trauma, that's what I'm talking about, is the thing that happened to us, the way we adapted to it.
I can definitely relate to that, especially with like childhood trauma and like the people pleasing and yeah. So what does true healing look like or feel like to you? Is it a moment, a process, or is it something else entirely?
Yeah, it's not just a process, but it's a practice, and it's a way of getting back in line with the nature of who we truly are. So like I was saying, healing is an innate and inherent aspect of this world. We see it everywhere we look. And a wounded animal knows how to take care of itself. It knows how to heal. Humans are no different. We have all of the innate ability to heal. But what we need to do is we need to cultivate a practice where we can connect deeply with that inherent wisdom that's inside of us. And to do that, we have to look at all of these things that are getting in the way. All of these barriers are stopping us from connecting to ourselves. And those are those traumatic adaptations that I'm talking about. So healing, in my opinion, is a process of identifying and recognizing the barriers that stop us from connecting to that wisdom that's inside of who we are, and cultivating a practice of awareness, of cultivating agency, making choices, and taking responsibility for ourselves, for our own emotions, for our own beliefs of who we are and beliefs about ourselves, and our own behaviors of how we treat ourselves and how we navigate the world. So that way we can respond differently to these situations and ultimately choose to do different patterns. Once we can start to cultivate choice and liberate ourselves from those old survival mechanisms, we can get much more in line with that inherent wisdom that's inside of us.
Thank you for that. So if you have someone that you're working with and they feel like they're stuck and they don't know like how to change, like what are some things that you can like do to help them like feel unstuck or help them get unstuck?
Yeah. Like you said just a moment ago, you can really relate with the childhood aspect, the childhood trauma. I've never met a single person who wasn't navigating some amount of childhood trauma. I've met lots of people who said they don't have that, who said, you know, my childhood was great, it was wonderful, or it was normal, so on and so forth. And it takes about 2 minutes of conversation to see that, while some of those dynamics may be true, that's only part of the story. Mm-hmm. Everybody that I've ever worked with, everybody that I've ever met is navigating some amount of childhood trauma. So it's very easy to just say that that's normal and to just see that as that's just the way it is, or that's just who I am. And so when trying to navigate these patterns and trying to choose something different, identifying something outside of what we already know is very challenging. It's like trying to see a color that you're blind to. So it's totally natural and normal that you would get stuck in these situations. It's like looking at a puzzle, like a 10,000 piece puzzle, but it's, an inch or two over your face. You can't see the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so having somebody there with you is very important. What I do is I ask lots of questions, and I try to help people understand the patterns and help them to recognize when they're present, and ultimately try to figure out what needs are underneath these patterns that are causing them pain. And if we can identify what those needs are, and when that pattern that is dysfunctional or is harming us is present, then we can try to meet those needs in healthy, constructive ways. So it's a constant practice of recognizing and identifying these old patterns that were born or formed out of trauma, and consistently cultivating and developing our abilities to make choices.
So what does that look like in a setting if you have someone that's like...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, self-reflection and self-inquiry are our best tools here. So it doesn't take long. Like if somebody says when they come in and they don't even know what to talk about, they just want to come in and start to work with it. So they're stuck right from the beginning. Just a few questions of asking what are they going through or what's present for them, something will come up. I don't think I've ever had a session where nothing came up and there wasn't something that was right underneath the surface that was begging to be discussed or to be examined. Usually the patterns that are causing us pain or dysfunction are just right underneath the surface. It doesn't take much for us to connect with them. And so my job here is to try to understand why this pattern's here. How often is it here? How often do we feel it? How often is it present? How long have I been feeling it? When did it first develop? When can I first remember feeling this feeling or this pattern? It almost always goes back to childhood, and then trying to understand what the needs were underneath that. So once I can identify what somebody's going through, then my job is to help them continuously identify every chance it comes up. And these patterns, they are so darn sneaky. It's like the old Scooby-Doo in like the 60s or 70s where it was coming out, and they were always going around solving the mysteries, and the person at the very end when they would do the unmasking was always the familiar character that was involved, or was the person who hired them. So that's a lot of the times what we're doing here is we're trying to identify old man withers or this same old pattern, and it keeps showing up in lots of different ways. It's very sneaky, very elusive, but it's almost always the exact thing. So it's just a game of constantly identifying it and making choices.
So would you call that like a cycle?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Or a pattern. A pattern is very common. We might get stuck inside of loops, for instance. An example of that would be that I have this really big emotion. I'm angry, for instance. And I don't like my anger, so I fight it and I try to suppress it and I try to get rid of it. And I have a very negative, harsh relationship with myself when I get angry. And then if I ask people, well, where did you learn that? Where did you learn that anger was bad? Where did you learn to judge and criticize and evaluate and punish yourself for being angry? It almost always goes back to childhood, because they were taught, well, if you're going to be angry, I'll give you something to be angry about. Or if you're going to be angry, you're going to get disconnected. You're going to get sent to your room until you can suppress that emotion. In other words, you're going to get threatened with the thing that's most important to you, your attachments. The way that we're treating ourselves now, if we're judging ourselves and criticizing, evaluating, and punishing ourselves for having this emotion, is exactly the same that caused the pain to begin with. We're treating ourselves the same way that our parents or caregivers treated us. So we get stuck inside this negative feedback loop, this cycle or pattern, and it keeps self-perpetuating itself.
So can you explain to the audience what a psychedelic experience is? This episode is brought to you by our sponsors, Source. And listen, if you've been looking for deeper guidance on your purpose, relationships, or healing, this might be exactly what you need. I had a session with one of the advisors, and the insight I received, y'all, was soul level confirmation. They truly saw me. And also, y'all, Source has been around for over 35 years. That's almost my age. You can connect through phone, video, or text. And right now, you can get 40 minutes for only $19.80. That is a $240 value. Click the link in the show notes or simply go to trypsychicsource.com/HVP. Again, that's trypsychicsource.com/H for healing, V for version, P for podcasts. Thank you.
Yeah. The word psychedelic is broken into two pieces, psychedelic. And we hear psyche all the time. Psychology, for instance. This is referring to, it's crudely referred to as the mind, but it's much bigger than that. A little bit closer to the reality is they call it the soul. It's all of these immaterial aspects of who we are. So it includes our thinking patterns, our mental patterns, our perceptions, the way that we see the world, the way that we interact with ourselves, this concept of who we are. It's all of our emotions, the things that we feel. And it's all of these incredible aspects of being a human that are innate inside of all of us: creativity, discovery, connection. So in other words, we're talking about the human spirit here. That's the psyche. And then delic is emerging, arising, or manifesting. So the word psychedelic is referring to an emergence of the human spirit. So when we have a psychedelic experience, what we're doing is connecting very deeply with ourselves. And we're connecting very deeply with that wisdom that's inside of all of us. We're connecting very deeply with a lineage of information and wisdom that's been handed down that is culminating in this moment of who we are. And when we have these experiences, what we usually are going to identify first and foremost are the things that are getting in the way of that emergence of the human spirit. We can get to this experience through so many ways. And all throughout human history, almost every culture has had a very sacred, respected place for psychedelic experiences. So you can get to it, of course, through working with psychedelic substances, but you can get to it through meditation. You can get to it through sensory deprivation. You can get to it through isolation. You can get to it through connection with nature. You can go into the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights and hear the voice of God. You can do a sun dance, push yourself to the brink of exhaustion and dehydration, and have this incredible psychedelic experience. There's so many ways to get to it, and it's a part of being human, and that is a very powerful tool to use for this healing process.
I don't know much about psychedelic. I think this may have been my first. I don't know. I feel like I'm studying psychology, so I feel like I've heard about it within my studies, but it's nothing that I've ever looked into. But now I'm like interested. So you work with people post psychedelic experiences. So what is something that you would say that people most misunderstand when it comes to psychedelic?
There's so much literature out there right now that makes it sound like a psychedelic is a magic pill, that it can immediately heal and cure all of the problems that you're dealing with. We'll see articles like FDA labels, this psychedelic substance as a breakthrough drug treatment for depression. And so we develop this perception of a psychedelic experience as it's going to change everything for me. It's going to make me feel great. It's going to take away all my pain. And that could not be further from the truth. The way it actually works is it's going to bring all that pain and all of those patterns that cause you harm directly to the surface, and it's going to bring it right to your awareness, and it's going to give you a wonderful, incredible opportunity to work with it. But you're the person who's got to do the work. You're the one who's got to engage and relate with it and try to take the lessons from it and apply those to your life. So this idea of a magic pill, I find, is very common and very resilient. Even when somebody has it and then they start to recognize or to understand that that's not how it works, there's still a part of them that kind of holds on to I just take this thing and it fixes me. And that's very far from the truth.
So do you think that has a lot to do with society and how we have a microwave world where everybody wants everything immediately, and this is, like everything is just immediate nowadays?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. We want the immediate gratification. We don't want to put in the effort to change our livelihoods, to cultivate a livelihood of health, of self-respect and self-worth. We're not going to choose how we live our lives and how we care for ourselves and for each other. We just want this injection. We just want this pill. We just want whatever it is to do it all for us. Mm-hmm. The instant gratification of society is very seductive and highly destructive. We can see so many industries and aspects of our society where this is the case, and it is very harmful.
It really is, because it really cheats you out of the healing process, because I think that some people may just tell themselves, I went through this experience, so now I'm good. And then that's when they start to suppress and not really deal with what the issues really are. Like, oh, okay, I know what it is, and boom, that's it. No, it's going to come back up. It's going to show its ugly head when those triggers come out. The cycle. That cycle. Yeah. So
precisely. Yeah. And what a wonderful opportunity when you get triggered and it comes up and you get to see, oh, this is still there. It's still powerful. It's still inside of me. It's still a part of me. It's a wonderful opportunity to engage with it. It's a great opportunity to say, there it is. Now I can do some work with this. Now I can relate with it. Now I can soothe it. Now I can engage with it. Now it's here. It's tangible. I can see it. But yeah, we have these beliefs, and I think a lot of this comes from our inability to navigate pain or discomfort. Again, going back to that traumatic experience that I was mentioning in childhood, is we never learn how to navigate discomfort. We don't know how to navigate pain. So we go through so many lengths to try to avoid it. And that's a big part of it right there, is we want to get immediately away from it. We want the immediate fix, the immediate change. And it's very harmful for us. We deprive ourselves of so much in the human experience.
Absolutely. Would you say that like some of the avoiding and like trying to not think about it ties to substance abuse, alcoholism, and drugs, because you don't want to think about it?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah,
I feel like I see that a lot, like within my community. It's like, okay, I was just actually talking to my sister last night, and I'm like, people like will drink alcohol every day. I'm like, what do you have to be going through to want to like be in that state of mind every day?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Where are you from?
I'm from Missouri.
Missouri.
Yes.
Whereabouts in Missouri?
St. Louis.
St. Louis. Okay. I grew up in Detroit, so I wasn't too far from you. And then I lived in Chicago, so I mean, we got the whole Midwest Rust Belt thing going on over there. Yeah,
Midwest slang.
Yeah. You know, it was funny because in Detroit, you know, when I was there and I moved to Chicago, they were always saying, "Well, at least we're not Detroit." And then when I was going through Missouri around there, a lot of people in St. Louis were saying, well, at least we're not Detroit. So it was always this going back and forth of, at least we're not, you know, our neighbor over there.
Yeah, nobody wants to take responsibility for their stuff, because let's be honest, Detroit, St. Louis, and Chicago are all full of crime.
That's right. So much pain, so many patterns of pain and suffering. And so when we're kids and we're navigating that type of environment, what do you do? How do you navigate that pain? It's not like we have a ton of resources to go through that. It's not like our parents are there holding us and comforting us and saying, this is pain. These are dangerous things. This is how you navigate it in healthy, constructive ways. For the most part, I don't know, you tell me if this was your case, I was out there on my own trying to figure this stuff out very early on. And the most that I had was a peer support group, which were people just like me who were also out there trying to figure it out. So it was very challenging, and the way that I adapted to it and the way I've seen just about everybody else adapt to it, again, is that survival mechanism that I talked about earlier on, is you can't set boundaries with all that pain and despair that's happening in the community. You can't go away physically, so what do? You go away mentally. You disconnect, and you have to find lots of ways to disconnect yourself from what you're feeling. So we distract, and we start with basic tasks to try and get away. We go into, you know, hanging out with our friends. We go into doing this activity, and then it starts leading into substances where we need things more than just behaviors, more than just a little thing to take us away. So when I ask somebody who has a major addiction, whether it's like alcohol or drugs, what does it do for you? I know what it does wrong for you. You'll tell me right away. I lost my family. I lost my relationships. I lost my job. I lost my health. I lost my house. Whatever, all to maintain this addiction. So what does the addiction do for you that you would maintain it while losing all those things? And almost always it's the same answer. It provides some relief from that pain. So again, we're coming back to not knowing what to do with the pain, and the addiction is a way of adapting to that pain. So if we want to heal the addiction, we can't ask, why are you addicted? We got to ask, why is there so much pain causing the addiction?
It's like an escape. Like if I'm
Exactly
feeling this way, then I don't have to think about the bills. I don't have to think about tomorrow. I'm just like right here, right now, in the moment. And I always say like, okay, so that's cool. Yep, you escape. But what happens when you wake up and you are not full of substance anymore? And now you got to think about it. And most people are they just get back to that level, get that tequila, get whatever I need to forget about it again.
Precisely.
It's never going to go away. It's going to always be there. Whenever you get sober, it's going to be there. It's there. So what
short-term relief. Short-term relief, right? And long-term pain, long-term consequences. So if we want to heal that, what we want to do is flip that script. We want to lean into the short-term pain, the short-term discomfort, and build the foundation, the skills and tools to navigate that pain, to learn how to recognize it, to learn how to accept that it's here, and ultimately learn how to comfort and soothe it and express it and process it, so we don't have to rely on the escape anymore.
Yeah, it's it's like I tell people all the time, like, just it's okay to feel like it don't feel good. Like a lot of we go through a lot of things, especially today with like even with the economy and just making ends meet and not having the right resources. Like you're going to go through things, and it's okay. Just feel it, and then figure out what you need to do about it.
Yeah. But that's so dangerous for a lot of people, because when we developed our relationship with feelings, which again happens in our childhood when our bodies are developing, when our nervous system's developing, when our emotional circuits are developing, that's where our relationship with these feelings is developing. And for the most part, as kids, we didn't have the ability to navigate those feelings. They were very overwhelming and very threatening. So our relationship with them they're threatening, they're dangerous, they're very scary. I don't know what to do with them. So it's very challenging to learn how to feel again. But you're absolutely right, Deborah. That is exactly what we have to do, is we have to start to pull out the escapes, pull out the anesthetics, pull out the numbing, pull out the painkillers little by little, and start to get more and more comfortable with feeling the discomfort. And it's so hard because you're naming it right now. I mean, how many of us are just struggling just to get by? These people are talking about 20, 30, 40 years and from now. You got these great big minds like Elon Musk talking about 200 million years from now the sun's going to blow up or whatever. What about tomorrow, right? Yeah. I get humans are going to have some problems in 20 million years, but how am I going to get my bills paid tomorrow? Can we dial it in a little?
Nothing to do with me right now. I mean,
precisely.
Like, not to be insensitive, but that has nothing to do with me now. Like, yes, I'm with you. What can we do now for the now? Because I have to survive now. I have to raise my kids now. I have to, it's the now that I need to know about.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So what advice would you give to someone who's had a powerful psychedelic journey and doesn't know what to do next?
Get some support.
You don't have to. What support look like?
You don't got to go through it alone. Have somebody there to help you unpack it and make sense of it. Again, it's like trying to put together a giant puzzle, but you're just staring at it 2 inches away from your face. You can't see all the pieces.
Right.
And, if you had a psychedelic experience on your own, or you tried it and it's so different when you start to experience it than compared to like when you're hearing about it or you're reading about it or you're hearing somebody talk about it. It's totally different. So try to notice if there's a belief present that I have to be strong and independent and do it all myself. And if you're having a difficult time with it, reach out to somebody like myself or anybody in this community who can help you really unpack that and start to integrate those aspects into your life so you can make some changes.
All right. And Julian will give his information in just a moment for anybody that needs to reach out. So your work is rooted in presence and deep listening. How can people begin to cultivate more presence in their daily lives, even without a therapist?
Yeah, that's really good, isn't it? My goal when I'm working with people is to help them build the skills and tools so they don't need me. I work with people for short periods of time, and the goal is to build those capacities on your own. You have all the answers, you have all the wisdom, you have all the knowledge, you can pull it out of yourself. My goal is to help you do that, so that way you don't need me. It's where a lot of therapists and a lot of medical field is to get you to keep coming back. And that's not the way that it works. If you want to start cultivating presence, if you want to start being here now, what we want to look at are what are the things that take you away. So if you're trying to be present with yourself, if you just sit for a moment, if you just sit on the floor, doesn't have to be anywhere in particular, and you close your eyes and you turn your attention inward and you say, I'm going to be present with myself, what happens? I'm willing to bet the most likely scenario is the mind starts going a million miles a minute, and you're thinking about all the things that are going to take you away from this. You're thinking about the bills, you're thinking about the stress, you're thinking about the kids, you're thinking about your job, you're thinking about this memory of this thing that happened 20 years ago where this person hurt you in some way. Okay, so we have a very, very busy mind, and that is taking us away from the present. So how can we work with that barrier? Well, where does it come from? Where did I learn that? If we can get very curious about these dynamics that are present with us and where they come from and what needs we had, chances are, one, we're going to find they go back to childhood very quickly, and two, we can identify what needs they have. So if we want to be present, what we have to do is start to cultivate some safety being here. So if that mind's really active, it's probably taking us away because there's lack of safety, there's lack of security. There's a lot of uncertainty that's here. And if we can start to feel more comfortable and safe here, practicing just touching in and being present here, it'll cultivate and we can develop it over time.
That was good. Thank you. So what role does the body play through like somatic work and healing, especially when words fail?
Yeah, words are up here, right? They're like this really superficial, conceptual way of understanding things. When we're talking about something like depression, anxiety, any of PTSD, any pain that somebody has from an addiction, chances are there's a physical feeling in the body that's associated with it. So again, if you just sit still for a couple minutes, say 5 minutes, and you just turn your attention inward, you might notice that there's a very specific feeling in your body. It might be like a knot in your stomach or a dropping feeling in your gut. It might be a weight or a heat, a fluttering in your chest. Your heartbeat might be throbbing. Your breathing might be real labored and constricted. You might feel some tension or constriction in your chest, a heaviness. You might have a choking sensation or dryness in your throat that feels like somebody's strangling you in a way. Or your jaw might be clenching down like this. These are all of those traumas that are stored in the body. Because when we disconnect from those emotions and we suppress them, they don't go anywhere. It just builds over time. And so it might sound difficult just hearing it, but usually people can tap into it very quickly.
It actually does not. I actually just had an interview with someone and they were telling me about a type of therapy that they do, and she was saying that like her body started to straighten up and her like jaws like started to relax, and
yeah.
I'm like, wow, like that's so it all ties in. It makes lots of sense to me. I hope that it's making sense to the audience, because it definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, all those feelings, they live in the body, and all we got to do is just look for it. Just scan, just take a quick little inventory. You'll find it. We might be disconnected from it, but with a little bit of patience, you can find it. And then the more you can just be present with it, just pay attention to it. Notice when you're doing something to distract yourself, to take away from your attention from that feeling. Make the choice. I'm going to focus in on that jaw clenching, or I'm going to focus in on that tension that's in my chest or that knot in my gut. And you don't have to change it. You don't have to fix it, and you certainly don't have to get rid of it. All you want to do is just pay attention to it and just go and say hi and just notice it and try and be gentle to it and then see what happens. Usually what happens is, just as you said, Deborah, is once you start paying attention to it and you start to notice it, it softens and we get some relaxation and some relief, and you can get that very quickly.
Oh, this is all good, Julian. You're helping me. Like, honestly, for real, like, I was sitting here, I work from home, so I'm, like, sitting here at my desk early, and I could feel, like, this in my back. It's like, I don't know, it was like this pain, and I'm just like, and I focused in on it, and I kind of put my hand back, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but like, ouch. And like now, like I don't feel it. I haven't thought about it in a few hours. So now I'll be paying attention to everything, especially like the clenching. I never thought about that, but I know when I drive, depending on the situation, the time of day, how much traffic it is, like I'll start getting bad anxiety. And I would notice that I'm like clenching the steering wheel like really hard. And I'm like, my hands gonna like cramp up and get stuck on the steering wheel.
Right.
And then I'll tell myself like, relax. Like, why are you clenching the steering wheel? But I know it's because like of the environment. But I've never used to be like that anxious. And I don't know, maybe it showed up a different way in my younger years than it do now. And then the jaw clenching too. Like I'll be like, what am I doing? Like, relax the jaw, like, ouch, that, like, I'll start feeling the pain. I'm like, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
So, this all makes really good sense.
That's what we do when we're nervous, right? Is you start to clench like this. And when you're driving, I've never once driven through a city and said, you know what, this is the safest, most relaxed I've ever felt. When I'm driving, I'm like, look at this guy over here. Oh my gosh, this guy almost just killed me. He almost ran. This guy over here almost just got killed too. Seriously, it's like legitimately. I was driving in my neighborhood the other day and I saw like 4 near-death experiences, like one after the next. And these people didn't even realize, like, they almost just got killed.
Wow.
You know,
just going on with life.
Just going on, disconnected from it. I was working with one client and he came in and he was like, oh, he was all tense and stuff. And I was like, what's going on? What's that about? He's like, oh, nothing. I'm not worked up. I was just driving. And he was driving on this one road that is like particularly known for a lot of accidents and a lot of fatalities. And I was like, well, yeah, you were just driving on that road. He was like, oh my gosh, that was really scary. So he saw how scary and how tense and constricted he was because it was a scary situation. And then we can make choices on, just like when you felt that pain in your back, we can pay attention to it. And we could try to comfort it and soothe it in some way, whatever is healthy and constructive in terms of what we need for that feeling.
So would you say like a lot of those things that we have built up, because I know it can affect you health-wise. Like if we don't tend to those things, they start turning into like different diseases and health issues that we then have to do other things, you know, modern medication stuff. And
yeah, precisely. Just about every single modern day disease that I've been able to identify, I won't say it's solely caused by trauma, because there's a lot of factors that play into it, but almost always these are directly correlated with some response to trauma. I can't find a single example of something other than like a very genetic disease that is something like muscular or built into like your bone structures that is very, very much based off of a genetic disease or some sort of disorder, that all of these are going to come back to some amount of trauma. And it makes perfect sense. Like if you look at like autoimmune disease, for instance, that means that the immune system is now attacking the body. It can't differentiate between threats and what's healthy and what it's supposed to protect. And you look at people with autoimmune disease and you'll very much find people pleasers, people who sacrifice themselves repeatedly, sacrifice their expression, sacrifice their boundaries, and put other people's needs ahead of their own. And the reason why they do this is there's usually some core belief underneath that. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not good enough. I have to put other people's needs ahead of my own to maintain my attachments. And if I don't do that, I'm a bad person. I'm not good enough. So there's a high amount of shame, meaning that they're constantly attacking themselves. They're being very harsh and critical to themselves. So it would make perfect sense that the floating brain inside our bodies, the immune system that holds memory and can identify threats, is mistaking the body, who we are, for a threat, because that's the way that we view ourselves, as something's wrong, something's bad with who we are. And so our bodies react to that. All of these conditions, almost every one of them, can be traced back to some sort of pathology like that.
Wow, that was good. That was good too. I am enjoying this interview. So what's one truth about healing that you wish more people understood?
The wisdom, the knowledge of how to heal, it is inside you and available to you. It can't be broken. It can't be destroyed. It can only be lost and disconnected. And that is something that has happened to just about every single one of us, is we have gotten disconnected from who we are. And the path to reconnecting to that is inside of you, and it is accessible, and you deserve to be able to connect with that ability to heal. The answers are always inside, and we get very easily seduced and distracted by all the external things. We want to accumulate the wealth, we want to accumulate the status and the respect and the value out there. The answers are not out there, they're always inside of you, and you can find it.
Wow, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, Julian, can you please tell the audience how they can get in contact with you, how they can link up and take advantage of your services that you have to offer?
You can follow, go to the website, psychedelic-integration.net, and we have a mailing list that you can subscribe to stay up to date. We have lots of articles and information on there and numerous interviews like what we're doing right now. There's also an ability to schedule a free consultation. So again, if you're going through it, you need some help, you want some support, maybe you have that belief that you got to do it all on your own, you can reach out. And please don't let something as silly as finances stop you from seeking help. So that's the easiest way to get in hold of us and to seek some services. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, that's another place where we post lots of clips of these types of interviews or ideas where we're talking, and we're starting to do like live videos and live streams where if you want to hop on and you want to talk or ask about something or bring what you're going through to the table and you want some support, there's lots of ways for it just like that where you can connect with us.
And what's the Instagram page?
It's Instagram.com/psyche-integration.
Psyche, spell it for me. I want to make
Psyche. I can send it to you too after this if that's helpful.
And yes, because I would love to put it in the description box of this episode so that my people and your people and everybody that's listening today can get in contact with you. And I thank you so much for being here, Julian. What an amazing interview. Thank you so much.
Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.